Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Vishnupad, Paramahamsa, Parudikacharya, Ashtotar, the Shishimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad, Paramahamsa, Parudikacharya, Ashtotar, the Shishimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Narayana Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 17th day of January, 2020 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Canto 4 entitled The Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 22, Prithu Maharaja's Meeting with the Four Kumaras, text number 6. Hatakasana asinam Sodishnesh ivapavakan Shuddha sangyama sangyukta Prita praha bhavagjan Hatakasana asinan Sodishnesh ivapavakan Shuddha sangyama sangyukta Prita praha bhavagjan Hatakasana asinan Sodishnesh iva pavakan Shuddha sangyama sangyukta Prita praha bhavagjan Hatakasana asinan Sadishnesh iva pavakan Prita prahma bhagavajan Hatakasana asinan Sadishnesh iva pavakan Shraddha sangyama sangyukta Prita prahma bhagavajan Hatakasana asinan Sodishnesh Shiva Pavakan Shraddha Sangyama Sangyukta Prita Praha Bhavagvajan Hatakasana Asinan Sodishnesh Shiva Pavakan Shraddha Sangyama Sangyukta Prita praham bhavagvajan Hatakasana asinan Sodishnesh vipavakan Shuddha sangyama sangyukta Prita praham bhavagvajan. Can you get those curtains for me? If you want to. I doubt if it will help, but maybe it will. Okay. Word by words. Hataka asane. On the throne made of gold. Asinan. When they were seated. Sadishnyeshu, on the altar. Iva, like. Pavakan, fire. Shraddha, respect. Sangyama, restraint. Sangyuktaha, being decorated with. Pritaha, pleased. Praha, said. Baba, Lord Shiva. Agwajan, the elder brothers. Translation. The four great sages were elder to Lord Shiva, and when they were seated on the golden throne, they appeared just like fire blazing on an altar. Maharaj Prithu, out of his great gentleness and respect for them, began to speak with great restraint as follows. Purport. The Kumaras are described herein as the elder brothers of Lord Shiva. When the Kumaras were born out of the body of Lord Brahma, they were requested to get married and increase the population. In the beginning of the creation, there was a great need of population. Therefore, Lord Brahma was creating one son after another and ordering them to increase. However, when the Kumaras were requested to do so, they declined. They wanted to remain brahmachari throughout life and be engaged fully in the devotional service of the Lord. The Kumaras are called Naishtika brahmachari, meaning they are never to marry. Because of their refusal to marry, Lord Brahma became so angry that his eyes became reddish. From between his eyes, Lord Shiva, or Rudra, appeared. The mode of anger is consequently known as Rudra. Lord Shiva also has a Sampradaya party known as the Rudra Sampradaya, and they are also known as Vaishnavas. All right, I'm going to read one more. Pritu urvacha oho achaditam kim me mangalam mangalayana yasya vo darshanam yasid durdarshanam cha yogi bihi. Translation. King Prithu spoke, "My dear great sages, auspiciousness personified, it is very difficult for even the mystic yogis to see you. Indeed, you are very rarely seen. I do not know what kind of pious activity I performed for you to grace me by appearing before me without difficulty." Purport. When something uncommon happens in one's progressive spiritual life, it should be understood to be incurred by agata sukriti, or pious activities beyond one's knowledge. To see personally the Supreme Personality of Godhead or His pure devotee is not an ordinary incident. When such things happen, they should be understood to be caused by previous pious activity, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7.28. Yesham tvandakatam papam jananam punyakarmanam. One who is completely freed from all the resultant actions of sinful activities and who is absorbed only in pious activities can engage in devotional service. Although Maharaj Prithu's life was full of pious activities, he was wondering how his audience with the Kumaras happened. He could not imagine what kind of pious activities he had performed. This is a sign of humility on the part of King Prithu, whose life was so full of pious activities that even Lord Vishnu came to see him and predicted that the Kumaras would also come. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, we're learning a lot here about how to regard great devotees who we happen to see or have a chance to serve, or most importantly, hear. Srila Prabhupada, at great effort, we know the story, practically the risk of his life, he came to America to give his audience, to give himself, and to be a medium, a transparent medium for pure words of the Shastra and the spiritual master and for Krishna, to the lowest people in the world practically, those who had no background in Vedic culture, were committing all kinds of sinful activities, the four sinful acts. They didn't even think twice. Nobody even knew they were sinful. And yet, Prabhupada made the decision to come to America after struggling for so long in India to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. People didn't appreciate him there, at least not enough, to really allow him to put down the roots of the movement and start the movement there. Now this, you could say, this is Krishna's arrangement, fortunate for us. But nevertheless, the fact that Prabhupada came to the West to start his movement showed that he had full faith in the words of his spiritual master and the prediction of Lord Chaitanya. You know, there's a prediction that Lord Chaitanya would send his Senapati. You know this phrase, Senapati? Senapati means the commander-in-chief of an army. Sen is an army, and Pati in this context means the commander-in-chief of his army around the world to really spread the Krishna consciousness movement, because he made the prediction, Priti Vityacheti Nagaradi Gram, that my name will be chanted in all towns and villages all over the world. And in India, it was doubted. Well, that must mean India. There's no question of like the Mlechas and Yavanas and outcasts in the rest of the world taking up Krishna consciousness. But no, this Priti Viti means the earth. You know, just like Prithu, he's known as Prithu because he got the earth to give her grain again and so forth. That's his most famous pastime. We heard somebody verses about that. So anyway, this passage is giving us some very nice instruction and example of the way in which great devotees, and that's Maharaj Prithu is the greatest devotee, is greeting even greater devotees. In other words, these Kumaras, they are in the position of great acharyas, the sons of Brahma. They have their own sampradaya. They have the jnana shakti. They're empowered. This is Shakti Avesh. I think I explained this before. It's described in the teachings of Sanatan, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teaching to Sanatan Goswami, maybe the 21st, 22nd chapter of the Madhya Lila. Different kinds of avatars. There's the guna avatars, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. In that context, Vishnu is considered an avatar. There's the Manvantara avatars, who are not the Manus themselves, but in each Manvantara, which is a period of Manu, which is 72 Divya Yugas, or 72 cycles of those 4 Yugas of Brahma, which is a long time. They give the laws for society. We have Manu Samhita. And so the first Manu was, what is it? Who was the first Manu, you remember? Swayambhuva, yes. And the present Manu is Vaivasvita Manu, the son of the sun god. And so they have, along with them, there are actual incarnations of Krishna who help them in the management of the universe. You read about them in the 8th canto. There's a whole list there. Yagya, and one of the names, they have different colors. So there's that kind of avatar. There is the Purusha avatars, Mahavishnu, or Karanadakshay Vishnu, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, Chiradakshay Vishnu. There are certain kind of avatars, especially for the creation and maintenance and destruction of the universe. And then you have the different kind of Shakti-Avesh avatars. Shakti-Avesh simply means infused with a power, of divine power of the Lord. And there's different kinds. There's the Pala Shakti here that Prithu has. Pala is protection. Like Gopal, he protects the cows, right? So Pala Shakti, that's the main function of the Kshatriyas, the rulers of the kings, is to protect the praja. That's what Kshatriya means, to protect from harm. And they have other functions also, as described in this passage, this part of the Bhagavatam, to see that everyone is engaged in their proper duty, and to see that everyone is progressing toward perfection of Krishna consciousness. That's also part of their duty. So Prithu has that Pala Shakti, and the 4 Kumaras have the Jnana Shakti. You remember they were Jnanis, they were Brahmavadis. They preferred impersonal Brahman. But they weren't Mayavadis. Mayavadis decry the very form and pastimes of the Lord as Maya. They're great offenders. The 4 Kumaras weren't great offenders, but they preferred Brahman, you know. And even though they made it up to Vaikuntha, the gates, you know, Vaikuntha, they had not been transformed into bhaktas yet. And because of that, they became very angry when they refused passage. They became very angry and they cursed Jai and Vijay. Then what happened is that, as I explained in the previous class, Vishnu came to the gate. He heard the ruckus. He comes walking to the gate. And as the fragrance, or the breeze that are carrying the fragrance of the lotus feet of the Lord, mixed with the tulsi manjaris, or as we say, manjaris, that entered their nostrils. They became transformed by that. There's a beautiful verse like that in the 3rd canto. Then they were the devotees then. And they were mortified at having cursed the devotees, Jai and Vijay, and they apologized, and they said, we're surely going to hell. But I mentioned that verse, but just please let every one of our words be offered to you like tulsi leaves, and let our ears always be satisfied hearing your glories, let our hands always be engaged in your service. This is the prayer to Vishnu. So that's the background. But here Prabhupada makes the point in the first purport we read, how they were determined to be devotees. They didn't want to propagate, you know. That was Brahma's big headache. Or should I say headaches? And because here he is the charge of the universe, and all the planets are there, but there's nobody living there. You know, he has to somehow manage the propagation of the praja. So of course, eventually the Prajapatis
come. He creates them, and their function, they embrace that function, and the universe is filled with living beings. But the Kumaras were the first of his descendants. It describes, amazing, he created out of, what did he have to work with? His own body. So from his mind, he created the Kumaras. And but they were already full of knowledge, and they didn't want to get entangled in household life. So they said, no, we're not doing it. So he became very angry. And because, that's why they're the Kumaras. They're the oldest created beings in the world, except for Brahma. But they keep themselves as little boys. They're called Kumaras. They look like 6-year-old. But when they speak, you realize, oh, they're full of knowledge. They're not 6-year-old boys. So anyway, they've come to Prithu, and it's described because he's so pure. That's why they've come there. They're not going to go, to impure places. But he's a wonderful receptacle for their teachings. So it describes how he was so inspired, spontaneously inspired to greet them, just like materialists are inspired to enjoy their senses, So he just got up, and all of his associates were on the same level, and they were just so happy to see the Kumaras. And they came. And so now he's describing, this last verse, how difficult it is for even mystic yogis to see you. You're very rarely seen. I don't know what kind of pious activity I perform. So he's already at a very high level, so he's being very humble here. This is the humility. And Prabhupada focuses on this idea of agyata sukriti. And I think this purport is really geared, many of the purports are geared to his disciples, who are going to be the first readers of the books. And so he's indicating how fortunate we should feel that we've come in touch with the pure devotee. Now, many of you, I guess all of you, didn't have direct darshan of Srila Prabhupada, which I was fortunate to have. But that doesn't mean that you can't also get the benefit of his personality and his preaching, because as he often said, and especially as time went on, and we were approaching his disappearance, that the most important association that you can get with any of these great souls is through the words. The famous dichotomy, which we learned in that last year, in 77, Vani and Vapu, Vani and Vapu. Because those magic years, from 66 to, say, 76, everyone was just, where's Prabhupada? Where's Prabhupada? Is he coming near to where I am? People would leave their temples and go. I remember in New York when Prabhupada came, suddenly the temple was full. There was no place to sleep. The whole temple was full of people. Because everyone wanted to, get Prabhupada's darshan. And so it was a wonderful thing. It was a unique opportunity to see and hear, a pure devotee and interact with Srila Prabhupada in any way possible. So, but he made it clear that last year that the most important interaction, the most important way of association is through the sound vibrations. And that's why he put everything in his books. He said, if you want to know me, read my books. My purports are my emotional ecstasies, So that's what we have in abundance here. And also we have so many videos, and especially we have so many recordings of his lectures. They're very, very potent because that sound is there. We read in this context, just previously, how the voice of the pure devotee carries the saffron mercy particles from Lord Krishna's lotus feet, So that's important here. Now Prabhupada quotes this agyata sukriti. Unknown, agyata means unknowing, sukriti means pious activity. Now pious activity, is often the kind of activity that people try to do in order to get something beneficial, materially. There's a whole section of the Vedas in which there are so many mantras and so many sacrifices and instructions for going to heaven, getting this better birth and so forth, or getting rid of previous sinful activities, you know what I mean? There is that part of sukriti. But sukriti means in general good activity. It also includes bhakti activity in the broadest definition. Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes this, what is this word he used? Bhaktyun mukhi sukriti. Means that pious activity which furthers bhakti, And I forget the other term, but there's another term similar that means that pious activity which furthers material benefit. good education, beauty, knowledge, and longevity, whatever. So we're interested in Bhakti-mukhi Sukriti, and that could be a description of what we do. So somehow or other, someone accrues unknowing activity, credits. It happens all the time. Devotees, even if someone just appreciates a devotee's character or somehow has a good feeling toward them, what to speak of, give a donation. Of course, buying a book is more than, a gyata sukriti. Or sometimes it's a gyata, people don't really know. Put the book on the shelf, or let's be honest, sometimes they're thrown away, But that giving of the donation and appreciating the book even for a few moments, that will eventually fructify in further activity. So in one sense, that's a big part of what this movement is doing, is that it's allowing people to perform a gyata sukriti unknowingly, and that's going into the bank account. So we need to have, as in our own lives, the long view. The long view. In other words, we're practicing devotional service, and we are confident that we're making progress on the path. We're going at our own speeds, but we make some progress. Fully confident that whatever we do in this life, we'll have another life, and we'll go on, and we'll make more progress. So the same thing is true for this sukriti. It's carried forward, and as Prabhupada says, to see personally the Supreme Lord or his pure devotee is not an ordinary incident. So Prabhupada made himself available as widely as possible. As soon as he got an opportunity to make that first record, he was very eager to do it. What to speak of those recordings that we're making of those early, those early classes in 26 Second Avenue. They have a certain flavor all their own. There's even recordings of Prabhupada in the early 1966 of his classes at Mishra's, Dr. Mishra's ashram. I think there's even one at the farm. I'm not sure, but they have a certain flavor all their own. Some of the Indian idioms are still there that Prabhupada gradually dropped because he was really interacting so much with Westerners. Where we say I like to say like that. Prabhupada would say, "I mean to say," he would fill it up with "I mean to say." You can hear some of these things, very endearing. So all of that is great fortune. This is what really the pure devotees are after, to spread the fortune as widely as possible to as many people as possible, to give them a chance, to spread those seeds, plant the seeds widely. There's a figure in American history called Johnny Appleseed. Does anyone hear of Johnny Appleseed? Johnny Appleseed, I read about him one time. He was like a sannyasi, His wife died. I think he was living on Long Island. This is like in the 19th century sometime, probably late 19th century, middle 19th century. And he decided to dedicate his life for welfare work. And I don't know how he got this idea, but he's going to plant trees, which is also a Vedic thing. Planting trees is very pious. You read about it. So he came up with the idea of planting apple trees. So he started wandering, and he came up to New York State. He's in New York, Long Island. I grew up there. So he went up to northern New York State where he figured the weather would be good, and he's just throwing the seeds out, throwing the seeds. Many of them didn't catch, but some of them did. Northern New York State is one of the main apple areas. I don't know if you know that. And he kept going all across the country, and of course he came to Washington, and he was throwing apple seeds, and that's another big apple place. So the same thing is true for the great devotees. They're looking anywhere where they can find some fertile ground. The fertile ground is in the heart of someone who's receptive, where you can plant those seeds. And the seed is, as I mentioned before, has different aspects to it. One of the main aspects of the seed of bhakti, of the bhakti lata, is faith. Is the faith. Is that you get some seed of the bhakti lata, bhakti lata bija, by the grace of the Lord and the pure devotee. This famous verse by Lord Chaitanya. He spoke to Rupa Goswami. We can all chant together. We should be able to chant together. Brahmande brahmate kon, bhagyavan jeev, Guru Krishna pasare pai, bhakti lata bij. So we're wandering. Brahmanda is the universe. Wandering up and down the universe, taking so many different bodies, struggling, dying, some human form, some other. Brahmate kon bhagyavan jiva, the fortunate jiva, Guru Krishna Pasade, by the grace of the Guru and Krishna together, Bhakti gets the Bhakti Lata Bija. Now in that purport there, Prabhupada describes what that consists of. The holy name, as I mentioned, faith in the process, the instructions, all of these can constitute the seed. And how do we water that seed, Bhakti Jamal? Hey, I said Bhakti Jamal. Yes. Shravan Kirtan Jal. Jal is water. The water of hearing and chanting, which is the basic process of devotional service. By hearing Bhagavatam class, Prabhupada was so adamant about the class, he would notice people who weren't there. Where is so-and-so? Where is so-and-so? Because that hearing waters that seed and becomes a creeper, which is threatened, because we have all these weeds in there. Probably upashaka it's called. The weeds, material desire, sinful reactions, envy, laziness, all kinds of things. We really cultivated those, and they're strong. So this little creeper is trying to grow. So we have to try to uproot the weeds, or at least don't feed them anymore. Don't water them. And so it's a struggle there, how to keep that garden nicely so that the creeper of devotion grows, and gradually the weeds die, and the fences of the weeds. So it's, I'm sorry? Yeah, and the worst offense is the mad elephant offense, who comes in and destroys the whole garden, which is the offending another devotee, especially a pure devotee. So we have to be very careful about that. So Prabhupada quotes this verse about from Bhagavad Gita. When such things happen, they should understood to be caused by previous activity. Yesham antakatam papam jananam punya karmanam. Now this is the verse at the end of the 7th chapter, describing how one can escape from illusion, from the duality of delusion. The previous verse, Prabhupada quoted again, I heard an explanation, as an explanation of how we come to the material world. Itcha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena bharata sarvabhutani sammoham sargayanti parantapa. So sargayanti means literally coming into the creation. And many commentators think, well, that just means, when you get another body. But Prabhupada said, no, this is the explanation of how we come to the material world. So here we are. We've been here for who knows how long, so many births. But this is the original fall. So Icha Dvesha. Icha is desire, Dvesha is abhorrence, things you don't want to do. Samotena, arising from the Icha and Dvesha. Now Prabhupada said in this context, Icha means you desire to do something other than devotional service. Dvesha means you don't want to serve Krishna. You hate the idea, So that mentality takes root even in the spiritual world. Prabhupada says we have a dormant desire for sense gratification even there. That's inherent in this living entity, the jiva. Samutena. So arises from that comes dvandva moha. Dvandva moha means the delusion of duality. Now, duality has two meanings. One of the meanings here is that we think there's something separate from Krishna. The material energy we try to separate from Krishna. We forget. And this is called Vitiya Benavesha Taksyat in the Bhagavatam. Vitiya, the second thing. Krishna's external energy. We become absorbed in that. That's the field of our Icha Dvesha now. I want to enjoy this, I don't like that, you see. This is full Dvandva Moha, bewilderment of duality, the delusion of duality. So from that, Dvandva Mohena. When you hear the ending ENA, it means an instrumental, and it means it's due to that something else is going to happen. Sarvabhutani sammoham. All living entities become bewildered, who are here in the material world, are bewildered by this delusion of duality arisen from desire and hate. Sarvabhutani sammoham, completely bewildered, not just bewildered, sammoham, totally bewildered. Sargayanti paranam, and then we come into this world. Now, how to get out of it? One has to overcome this delusion of duality, and that comes from leading a sinless life. Yesham tvantakatam, two means but. On the other hand, antakatam papam, the end of this trap in the material world, which is caused by sin, papam, andagatam papam. You have to end that sinful activity, jananam punya karmanam, and simply perform pious activity, sukriti, bhakti activity. Te dvandva mohani mukta. You become liberated from the delusion of duality, and te dvandva mohani bhajante mam dridavata. One worships me with firm determination and faith. How to get that firm determination? Because this is the problem. We may practice devotional service, but if we're not determined enough, we can get swept away by Maya. There are so many pitfalls. Maya is always looking for an opening, you know what I mean? So we need to have that firm determination and the faith, and that comes from practicing strictly the pious activities of bhakti and giving up the sinful activities. Then one is completely freed from all the reactions of sinful activities by this process, can engage in devotional service, and what he doesn't add here, but that's in the verse, with firm determination. Now, so King Prithu now, he's showing, again, the humility of a Vaishnava. He was full of pious activity. He was wondering how his audience with the Kumaras happened. So this just shows his humility, how a real devotee is so thankful to see another pure devotee. How wonderful it is that I've gotten this opportunity. What is that verse? Even Lord Chaitanya, when Sanatana Goswami came, to see him, he finally escaped from jail. You know the story? He bribed the jailer with the money that Rupa Goswami left with an honest grocer. Can you imagine? How much money? A whole boatload full of gold, and he gives it to a grocer. Which grocer would you like to give to? But that's the character in those days. The honest grocer had all the money. So Sanatana Goswami, he was the right-hand man of the Nawab, even more, valuable than Rupa, according to the king. And so he arrested him. So how to get him out of jail? So he was very wise, diplomat, So he said, okay, well, we'll praise him first. You're a very pious Muslim, and I'm hoping, if I get out of here, I'm going straight to Mecca. He's trying to. So why don't listen? I have this gold, and you can just let me out. This will be very good for you. It'll be pious activity. But he was afraid. He said, "No, the king finds out, he'll execute me." So he said, "No problem. You just tell him I went to to the river to pass stool. I fell in and I swept away. There's no body or anything like that." And then he pushed forth another $10 million worth of gold. Whatever it was. And so he broke down. Okay, so he gets out, and then he had to go kind of incognito, so he's kind of going on the back roads, and finally he hears, where is Lord Chaitanya? There's no internet, there's no cell phones. Where should I go? So he heard that Lord Chaitanya was in Benares. He had already gone to Vrindavan. He came down to Prayag and instructed Rupa Goswami for 10 days, and then he came to Benares or Varanasi. And then there's this whole thing that happened with Prakashananda and all the Mayavadis converted to Mayavadis. So while he's instructing Sanatan for 2 months, this thing is going on with the Mayavadis. So when he arrived, his whole passage was amazing. I think he was able to have one servant, right? Didn't he have his one servant, Ishan? And Ishan, being a very dutiful and cautious, he took 8 pieces of gold, for passage. So he gets to the difficult tract of land. He couldn't figure out how to go through rough terrain, whatever. And there was an inn. There was we call a Holiday Inn or something. And the guy the proprietor had an astrologer, and the astrologer he has 8 pieces of gold with him. So they were conspiring. They were all alone, just 2 pilgrims, so that they were going to murder him and take the gold. So remember, Sanatana is a great diplomat, so he's very wily in the ways of government, and politics. So he asked very innocently, he asked the innkeeper to give him some instructions, since he lived there, how to get across this dangerous tract of land. And the innkeeper said, "Oh yeah, we'll help you tomorrow. Just come and you stay in the inn tonight." And So Sanatana was suspicious. Why is he so eager to help me? I'm just So he asked Ishan, his servant, "Do you have something valuable with you that you kept?" Because he's trying to be renounced, He said, "Yes, I have 8 pieces of gold." "Oh, why have you kept this death knell, with you? Give me it." Actually, he said, "I have 7 pieces of gold." That's what it was. So he gave him 7. He kept 1. He said, "Well, he has to keep something. So you have to get a bus somewhere or something." And so he gave this 7. He said, "Look," to the innkeeper, "Look, you take it. Here, I'm giving you this free of charge. Just help us out of your goodwill, So that softened the heart of the innkeeper. He said, "Oh, you're I was going to murder you. Thank you so much for not, so I didn't have to perform that sin. You keep the gold, and I'll help you anyway. This is like." And so I said, no, you keep this a death knell. If you don't kill us, someone else will kill us for it, So the innkeeper said, yeah, my astrologer told me you had 8 pieces of gold. So now he knows there's a discrepancy, because Ishan told him 7, right? So he doesn't say anything. Then they go across the tract of land. When they're finally free, and he's with Ishan alone, he said, "Ishan, I think you have some balance of the gold." He says, "Yes, master, I have 1 piece." Then you take that gold and you go home, So now he's all alone, So he's shedding, every last bit of attachment like this. So he's feeling free. Now he has nothing, So he's going nicely. Then he meets a relative, one of his brother-in-laws, And the brother says, "Oh, Sanatan," I think, or Daburkash is the name of Chakramark, I forget. And he says, "Here, stay a day or 2, Why are you looking so bedraggled, And so Sanatan says, "I'm not going to stay even a minute, because he doesn't want to get entangled again, in his attachment for, family and wealth." So he says, "Oh, at least take this nice chadar to stay warm." He had an extra chadar. Okay, well, that'll take. So he took that and off he went, Finally he made his way to Prayag. By that time he'd grown a big beard, So he comes up, Lord Chaitanya is staying at the Tapan Mishra, one of his devotees from Navadvipa, and Chandrasekhar. And so he's staying there, and Sanatan just sits down on the outside, on the porch. And so, Lord Chaitanya is omniscient, he knows. So go out and see if there's a devotee out there, So he goes out and he sees this fellow sitting there with his big beard. He figures he must be a Muslim, So he goes back, "No, there's no devotee." So, "Is there anyone out there?" "Yeah, it looks like there's some kind of Muslim mendicant or something." Invite him in. So he gives him, invites him in, and he sees it's Sanatan. He gives him a big hug, And Tapan Mishra is like, "Whoa, I didn't know, who is this, So then he chants his verse. This is why I was telling this story. Lord Chaitanya, playing the role of a devotee, he's, just like Prithu, he's so appreciative of the chance to see a great devotee like Sanatan. So he chants his verse. You might remember, "Akshno palam tvadisha darshanang hi, tono palam tvadisha gata sangha, jive palam tvadisha kirtanang hi, sudurlabha bhagavata hi loke." Which means, seeing you is the fruit of all the seeing, akshno of the eyes. See, akshno palam twadrisha means someone like you. Akshno palam twadrisha darshanang hi. Tono palam twadrisha gata, embracing you is the fruit of all touch. And tono palam twadrisha gata, and chanting your glories is the fruit of all singing of the tongue. Because it's very difficult to see a pure devotee in this world. Exactly pertinent to what we're reading today. So this is how Lord Chaitanya, just as Rupa, as Prithu, is a great devotee, Shaktivesh, he's practically on the level of Vishnu. He's described as the Supreme Personality through the first part of this, you remember that? He's also taking that role of appreciation for the great devotees of the Kumaras. So this is instructive for us, how we should appreciate the chance, the opportunity. As you get older, there's a certain blessing as you get older. You realize that time is running out. If I'm really going to try to be a pure devotee, I better get cracking. When you're young, you say, "Oh yeah," everyone was young when Prabhupada started the movement. No one over 30. Everyone in their 20s basically, even less. And so, birth, death, old age, disease, this is something I should be careful. Okay, sure, yeah. But, old age, disease, it's way in the future, a million years from now. You just don't feel the urgency of it when you're so young and vigorous often. But that's one of the blessings of old age. You realize, well, time is running out. Better get serious, And that's why you find the injunction, at a certain age, it's supposed to be 50, where you leave household life and run a vanaprastha, and you move toward that renunciation, so that you can have time to overcome the attachments and just become attached to Krishna. So it's really that it should be that way at all moments, because we do not know how much time we have left. Every day practically I keep up with the news, and the climate change thing is a lot worse than you hear about in the news. Methane is about to explode in the Arctic, the Russian part of the Arctic, which is huge. They have something called these. There's a huge part of the Arctic Ocean there that's very shallow. It's only like maximum 40 meters or so, and there's all of this methane trapped under there in frozen clathrates, they call them. But the heating of the ocean, it threatened this methane to come out like a big burp, and that methane is hundreds of times more of a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide, and it can cause a sudden increase in temperature. And what'll be the first thing we feel? The prices of food will go way up. It'll be much harder to grow the food. As already they're finding in India. You realize how delicate is the balance of the climate, that the monsoons have to come at the right time and can't become, irregular. It comes late and then it floods, It just ruins, It becomes much harder to grow things. And then, desertification spreads, and then as you have refugees. Not millions, but hundreds of millions of people are moving, trying to get. This is what's coming, unfortunately, in our lifetimes, even in my lifetime, possibly. So it's all very urgent. This Krishna consciousness. This is our life insurance. Is really advancing in devotional service, and try not to come back, because if you come back, you may come back in the earth, and it'll just be that much more horrible. So it's all a very serious thing, and Maya tries to induce us to, no, just enjoy a little bit here, enjoy a little bit there, take it easy. We don't want to take it easy. We have to become, as described in this verse, Yesham jananam punyakam te dvandvamo bhajante mam dhridavrata. That dhridavrata, that very firm vow, vyavasayatmaka buddhi, it's so much emphasized in the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter. How to get the firm, intelligence firmly fixed. And I was thinking, how many times does Krishna say in the Bhagavad Gita, the importance of remembering him always? There's this 5 verses just came to mind. 8th chapter, Ananyachetak sadatam yomam smarati nityasa tatsaham sulabhakpata nityayuktasya yogina. One who remembers me all the time, Ananyachetak, me without deviation, I'm very easy to attain. Yeah. But getting to the point of always remembering Krishna, that's not so easy to attain. So we have to work, manmanabhavam bhakto, think of me, ananyas chintayanto mam. Those who just think of me all the time, I provide what they need, I preserve what they have. This idea of yoga kshema, everybody's running for yoga kshema. They don't know what it's called. But yoga and kshema. Yoga are the things you need to live. You can expand that beyond real necessity, but we all need, a certain amount of food, clothing, shelter, whatever. And shema, which is your security, which is your safety. You may be in a nice apartment, and you've got money in the bank and everything, But if there's an earthquake coming, or there's refugees by the thousands coming toward you, there's no security. Or just if there's crime everywhere, That yoga and kshema. Krishna says, I carry it. I carry those things for those who always think of me. I provide somehow or other, So that effort to increase the amount of time when we're thinking only of Krishna, we should be striving for that constant remembrance of Krishna. I'll end with this. This is a verse from. Sorry, I went over time. I call it the Krishna Katashtaka. Did you ever read that? At the end of the Bhagavatam, 12th canto, 12th chapter, I think it takes 48, starting there. And the first word is Sankirtan, Sankirtamano Bhagavana. I won't go through the whole thing. But it's describing the glories of hearing about Krishna. And it's this great verse. That if one is absorbed in hearing and chanting about Krishna, then Krishna enters the heart and he destroys all suffering, for the devotee. On the other hand, it goes back and forth. Misha gadasa yasatira satkata. Those words which don't glorify Krishna, they're false and useless and harmful. But on the other hand, tadeva satyam, tadohaiva mangalam, tadeva punyam, bhagavad gunodiyam, tadeva ramyam, ruchidam, navang navang, tadeva shashrang, manaso mahotsavam, tadeva shokarna vishoshanang, nanang yaduttama shloki shonagiyate. It's the most robust description, and there are many of them in the Bhagavatam, of this glories of hearing and chanting. Now, on the other hand, those words which glorify the Lord are true, they're auspicious, they bring all good fortune, they're attractive, ramyam, they're ruchidam, very tasty, ever fresh, navang navang, tadeva shashrang manaso mahotsavam, an eternal festival for the mind, and they dry up the ocean of lamentation. So that's what we should be absorbing ourselves in. Hearing and remembering and chanting, sharing with others, and following the instructions. And that's our best situation in this world. Prabhupada has given us this gift. Nothing else, is valuable compared to that. Nothing material can actually help us. Okay. God, I'm sorry, I just got going. Any one or two important things? Okay, we have a mic. Sorry, we only have one mic. Somehow Janardhan took the other mic.
When you were speaking about cultivating our garden of the heart, our creeper devotion, I was thinking of this class I was listening to by Rukmini. And she was saying how there's these plants, they're called companion plants, or plants that they recommend to grow side by side. And some even will provide shade for other plants, some will even give nutrients. She was comparing that to other Vaishnavas or the Guru. And there's
that's
also
really nice.
weeds that can choke the bhakti lata and kind of take.
That's the need for association. Absolutely. One more.
Point. You mentioned what's the term you use for weeds? The Sanskrit term for weeds.
Upashaka.
Upashaka. Okay. How do you break that up? Upashaka. What's
Shaka is a branch, and upa means an extra branch, or an extra, some other plant that's not what you're trying to water. Okay. Basically, it means weed.
So you made the distinction between uprooting the weeds and not feeding or not nurturing the weeds. So what's the essential difference between those two?
Well,
what's the difference
maybe
in
I
the process?
was mixing the metaphors there. The uprooting is usually reserved for like the wild elephant. Is going to completely up. It's not going to. It's not that your plant is going to suffer a little bit from not enough nourishment, but it's going to be pulled up entirely. That just means that that's the sure way of destroying. You can't destroy it, but stopping your advancement is by a serious offense, especially against a great devotee. That's the uprooting. We like to pull out the weeds, but generally we've been cultivating them so long. The best we can do is starve them. That's the thing. It's just like material desire. That's another plant that's being encouraged. This idea that the creeper, Prabhupada talks about this. There's the different creepers that we've been cultivating since time immemorial. The creepers of desire, by engaging in material activities and trying to satisfy material desires. We're feeding that. That creeper becomes very strong. So Krishna Kanda means that, okay, we now have another plant in there, this bhakti lata. And we have to feed that and nourish that through the hearing and chanting primarily. And not feed the weeds, so that they'll gradually die off and wither. And that's the classic thing. Sometimes they're compared to knots, binding us, to this material world. So how do you cut the knot, or at least untie it? And the means is through the devotional service. Yat pada pangata palasa valasa bhakti karma shayam gutita mudguta yanti santa. So the grunta are the knots. It's a different metaphor, but it's the same idea. But you can cut them off or untie them by cultivating bhakti and experiencing the pleasure of devotional service. That's in these Kumara instructions. We'll hear in about a week. So really, it's not so much uprooting the weeds. We like to be able to do that, but they're a little too strong for that. So we'll have to starve them, by not engaging in sense gratification and not hearing about it. In other words, it's a whole it's a consciousness thing. And then the desire is sublimated. I like to use that term, into Krishna activity and Krishna thought, and then the weed is dead when we get to the point of Yamunacharya, with his, ever since I've been enjoying moment by moment or the taste of serving Krishna's lotus feet, then when I happen to think of my experiences, in sex life, it's disgusting. It really doesn't have any attraction for it anymore, which is quite an amazing thing. Then the weed is dead, you know what I'm saying? But offenses we need to guard against, because they can act very suddenly and destroy. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.